We're going to say, if anyone's unfamiliar, the toilet's in the back corner just over here. And if it all goes to hell in a handbasket, we'll just make a run for it.
Go away.
And don't drive off the bridge because the water's...
Is she getting that? Is it that?
Pretty good. We'll send the biggest car out first and then everyone just follow the line.
How about we send the smallest out first? So thanks for coming in, especially on a night like this. So I'm Hape, Kiddle, and originally from over here, living in Australia. I'm a sculptor. I studied furniture making, but I'm sorry guys, I actually didn't like it that much. I love shape. No, I did like it, but my mind was elsewhere. I got into carving when I was quite young, like about 6.5, just with hummus and stuff like that. Then I did the typical Kiwi boy thing, which was a bit of bone carving, and I played with a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But it wasn't until I went to uni and studied furniture making that I really got into the carving. And then I went and did my trade in goldsmithing because I did actually work as a furniture maker. We moved away where there were no trees and no likely clients, but there was an opportunity to become a jeweller, so I studied goldsmithing, not jewellery, but as a trade, which is very, very different. It's much more about coal, forging work and so on. And then somehow I've ended up where I've ended up. Because really, in truth, I had no plans whatsoever. And now I get to do it all the time, which is pretty cool. And I get to hang out with really cool cats like yourselves and do a bit of travelling and go to different venues. So it's a pretty sweet life. But I guess I'm not really into the monologuing thing. I can do it. You won't enjoy it, but I can monologue. But I really like dialogue. So what I thought I'd do tonight was just get a kick-off and then just open up the floor, because I'm happy to take any amount of questions and any type of questions, because I figure I shouldn't be talking up front unless I know what I'm doing. And I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing, and if not, I'm really good at faking it. So this is what my bench is at home, at work. So I actually have 2 or 3 benches. I've got the portable one and then I have 2 main ones. And I will literally roll out the paper. There's a big roll on one end. I'll roll it across, put it down, and then it becomes this. And so if I've got a particular interest, I might draw from one length of the other. This bowl here, originally, so come in closer guys. Just don't squeeze the camera out, we want to give that a chance. So I'm just going to go straight into it. So if I'm doing something like this, where I live right now is flat. It's really flat, like super flat. It's we have one range. It's probably no more than 100 metres high, and otherwise that's it. And that range is just sort of disappears. But it does a little bit of this. So let's just bring that range out. So it might go like that. And so with these, I'm obviously looking at seed pods and shells and all of these things that encompass and hold life at some sort of point. And that kind of brings me into thinking about what I'm doing there. And so I might just do this and think about how I'm sitting in this landscape. This landscape is holding me, and I start going, okay, well if it's doing that, what's that dance? What's that feeling? You know, what is that life coming in through one end, or knowledge that you hold temporarily? And so this is basically how it starts for me. Is it starts being an idea, and I don't know if you can see it already, but as soon as it starts churning, it becomes an emotional form in me. So for me, shape and form feels like music, it feels like poetry. And so if I get the wrong set of words, which are the right set of words, like one little piece of endless sky, which I created an entire exhibition around, because where I am, 3/4 of the landscape is just sky, just flatness. And it's just one little piece of endless sky that moves through you. You don't exist in it, it exists in you. And from that, I will start bringing those lines and you know, okay, let's bring that through, and we'll stop that pencil open, let's start actually giving it life. And so we start sweeping that line, and there's a valley, I can feel her straight away. So we've got a valley bit of a shape coming up. She stretches out, and that stretching out is pointing downwards. So as I come through, I want to remember that I might start in the earth, or I might have this feeling back here, but in truth, always wanting to go up. So I pull her up a little bit with just the sliders down, which is almost like the head nodding to acknowledge that yes, I'm going up, but I'm still there. I'm still part of that. And so from there, if that line's going down, I'll bring the wall up on the other side and bring it. So we get these rhythms going, because that's what the landscape does there. It sort of oscillates. Here, whenever I come back home, you can almost feel the vibration of the dirt is so much higher. It jumps up, like everything grows, jumps up here really quick. But where I am in Australia, she's slow. It's really old land, and you've almost got to slow down and hear it and get it started, just to get that feeling. And so I'm looking for those things all the time, and that's basically where I start. And from there, anything can happen. So this literally is one of those shapes, one of those series. And the fluting on it, the first time I sort of started thinking about those flutes is I wanted to represent that time, that movement. So I was like, okay, well, what is that? What is that generational look? And you know, Māori would say, what is that whakapapa? What is each thing built off, you know? And so those lines sort of start coming out, and that's kind of how I get those sort of ideas going. So it's almost an emotional landscape is what I'm looking for. And what has it got to do? Like I know there's furniture makers in here, and we all design and think differently, but what has that got to do with anything that you guys do? Well, every great bit of work I've ever seen had that emotive understanding. All form, like an understanding form. Not an understanding up here, yeah? Because you can go read a book right now, you can get any amount of theory on something, you can know about something, but that's not knowledge. Yeah? Other way around. It's knowledge, but it's not knowing. Knowing comes from practice. Knowing comes from being in a place. Knowing comes from doing. But I can go read this book and go, yeah, that angle, and I can go and make that according to that book, but will that feel like I wanted it to feel? And then so for me, there's all of this play, and as I said in the beginning, it's a detective board. So over here, I've just put I'm working towards doing a book in the next few years, and I don't know what it looks like. I've got no idea. I do joke that it's a very small book, very large writing, and probably will be that. But I've just put down one of the breakdowns out of one of my sketchbooks of what was going on, and straight away I noticed that that there were other parts where we were talking before about the grain of a tree, and of course your fingerprint is a grain. Yeah. Your whole skin is a grain, and it's your grain. It's like a tree. And so I was like, we have grain, and grain was one of the words that had come here. But then I had stay, and I just wrote something down, because when I wrote down stay, I remembered a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time, and there was a distance in the care for each other that couldn't be resolved, couldn't be solved, because we're in different countries, and there was this I can't find the words for it. I can only find the figure for it, the form for it, which is why I do this, because I'm terrible with words. But there was this moment, and it just jumped up, so I wrote it down. That's exactly how I work when I'm in the workshop. Just put it down. It doesn't have to go anywhere, and that's really important too. Nothing ever has to go anywhere. If it's got enough to it, it'll push anyway. It'll push it and find its place. So that's a start, and how about I tell a little story after, but has anyone got any questions, or does anyone come and grab a pencil and draw over the top of something? Come in, make this short, come into the space. We don't have to stand too far back. Just don't interfere with the camera person across.
See the lines here.
South American, very dangerous. Yes. Yeah, so, I can talk about any amount of this, so if you've got something that jumps up and it interests you, ask me about it by all means, or I'll do it, and I'll just keep yakking and monologue.
Tell us about the little twin pencils for starters. The smallest items.
Okay, yeah. So I made these up this morning, and I have made these since I have had my first studio where I live now. I would walk around in the garden. My studio has a giant garden full of old big trees, which where we are is unusual because we're in flat country, and it's irrigation. And and the guy who owned it would just flood irrigate it anyway, so all the trees jumped up to be the largest trees in the area. And I'd go out and I'd walk around and I'd go, oh, gee, this little twig's beautiful. Oh, look at this one. And, I was like, and before I knew it, I was like I was becoming a twig addict or something. And I was like, what could I do to that for people to see how I see? Because that's kind of what an artist does, is we reach out to the world. We're trying to be in communication and share that communication. I actually think art is about imagining. We change the world with our imaginations. And in fact, right now, I would say, in the way that the world is right now, we need more imagining than we've ever needed. We need to speak louder. But the twigs, so let's grab them. The twigs were that sort of start, and then I figured that if I drilled them with a 2mm drill and I tried to feed leads into them, because you can buy all colours in 2mm, then surely wouldn't that be a pencil? So they don't go that far in, usually about 40mm, and some cheeky bugger then puts a little bit at the other end. I don't know who keeps doing that. So there was that, and obviously, like, it really sparks you. How does he do this? He does it. But I would have kids come into my studio because it was public, and they would just gravitate straight to it. So of course you're going to give every kid a pencil. You'd be like, oh, how does he get the colour? And I'm like, well, I just take different cordials and I pour it on the trees. So that was one. I also told the entire body at Sturt, which is arts craft practicing place in Australia. I told the whole body of people for the summer school that there was, because I only used one colour, which was the Sturt red, and I told them that there was a special acacia that grows that never loses its core bit of the tree, which happens to be red.
And they believed you.
Oh my God. Well, I told it to the head of the school, and she believed me. And then I corrected it, but she thought it was funny, and I had put them all around the school, so she announced it, and everyone went looking. But the main wood guy, Michael, delightful human, he came up to me and said, I've never heard of that tree. I thought I knew everything about trees. Tell me where that tree is. So I gave him a location. And I'm sure everyone understands now, but I noticed I had some pink leads in my box when I got here this morning. And so I'd already grabbed the branches and put them there just because I went out like at 7 a.m. when I first arrived here, and I just built the whole branch out of other branches, just I don't know why, because that's what this thing's for. So that's what that is, and if I can get some more 2mm leads while I'm here, I'll do a whole set, because we do little fish and chip nights, which are called chip and chat nights. And we will be holding chip and chat nights, and you can bring a friend and we all sit down, we have a carve together. If there aren't enough knives, we have 2 people to 1 knife, except James does sanded. And I start off a whole bunch of little projects, and it's not actually a lesson, it's just a sharing, and I guide people a little bit, like really I let you all have fun. And you can bring your wine and beer, that's how your design changes. So we will definitely do some chip and chat nights, and I'll try and do some more pencils, that way you can all have one. So that's what those are about. And at the very core, they're about me reminding myself and hopefully speaking to others about that the core of design for me, my why, always comes back to nature, always. I never feel separate from it. So, and all of a sudden, somebody who's never looked at a stick, they're going to look at that and they're actually going to study it and look at it and connect to it. They're everywhere. Yeah. So that's the steps. That works. Cool.
How did the expression like pulling the wood came like to you, like, or did you got it from?
So when you sculpt from a hard form, you're always reducing, and most sculptors work in forms where it's what we call additive, like clay and so on. So I've done a bit of bronze work now, but I still always do my core work in the wood. I feel really comfortable with it. But when I say extrusion, and this is extrusion, so if I had something out of plastic like this and I pull it and extrude it, I can see what it wants to do, and how far it will go, and I can get a feeling of it. So if I'm setting up big Mobius forms, for example, some of them will be in different materials. Like I use industrial rubber to work out the design, because the weight of the industrial rubber actually slumps and sometimes I'll suspend it in mid-air just to change the nature of the gravity and the effect that it's going. And I'll keep playing with that. Rob and I had a little bit of a play last night with the sort of same process, until I see something that makes me feel something. It's just, oh, that shape. And that's when that language starts speaking. And so that extrusion, that idea that we can get this guy here, we can pull him out, and then we can motorbike handle him, we can twist him, and that's how that sort of feels and forms. So if I'm playing with a bit of plasticine, I can literally do that. And the thing about using plasticine is that it doesn't cross-contaminate like clay does in a workshop. So it doesn't matter if I go from plasticine to this, but in clay, that clay will get into the grain of wood. And also, once I've got the shape sorted, and I make these quite large, like I'll do a full size out of it, and if I need to, I'll give it a skeletal structure, which you can wire it. So I'll do that, and then I'll stick it in the fridge, and then I can actually take it out when it's cold and hard, and I can carve it with a very tool that I can carve it. So I can get down, this piece here was made, not this exact one, but a version of this was made in plasticine to the detail long before I carved it. Because if I'm going to spend, like a Netscape like that is at least 100 hours. If I'm going to invest that time, I need to know where I'm going. So I haven't lost the emotive search with my hands, because I will change things, but I have sorted out what I need to understand. And I'm going to come back to this piece with the story later. So. Sure, always full of irregularities, and some of them tell you what to do, and others you figure your way to keep going, and some aren't the right bits of wood, but you learn to read the wood really well. Very rare do I change it according to what the grain is doing. I've normally read the grain fairly well before. So the tree never forgets anything, so every layer is a storage of its life. So if you've got a bushfire, for example, so I did a giant fish for the National Museum in Australia. So a Murray cod, 2.25 metres, 600 kilos, or 650. And when I was cutting into that, I found a full layer where it had been in a bushfire. And I'm like, of course it's not going to forget that. It's because a tree covers its life over and over. It's like coral. Most of it's not so much. I mean, it's drawing water and doing its job, but the living part of the tree is on the outside. It's the canyon, under the bark. And that's why if someone cuts all the way around that, it stops the communication of the tree, kills the tree. Green bark, it's like horrible. But every layer, everything is in it. So if I look at the outside of a tree, it's going to tell me a whole bunch of things. So if I look at, this is Kidgee, this is desert wood. Get a bit of desert wood out.
But I mean, how would you know that there's a...
The bark will be moving to it. It's almost like a ripple. So the ripple continues. I don't know if that's in it. That's just bad luck if I hit that. But generally, if I look at the square, by the time I sort of cube something up, I'm going to get a whole bunch of clues. If there's something here, like that can't come from the inside out. So usually it's like from the out in. And I have to say, some wood will move at different rates, tangential to linear lateral movement. And within it, you'll have a little crack here and you get inside, particularly as the Tasmanian myrtle does this, and it'll be massive as you go in, because normally as you go through a crack, it'll get smaller and smaller as you go to centre. But some, like that, you go that way. And what do you do with that? You make a smaller object, because there's nothing you can do about it. Unless you want to fill it and do all those games, but I don't do that much. So I'm a little bit crack sensitive, which limits the size I can work to, but when I work large, you just have to go to what it is. The one with the National Museum, we used a quarter, so it was 600 by 700 by 3.2 metres long. And we got it, so pretty chunky, but that was a quarter of the tree. It took 3 months to find this tree. It was that just there. Because I didn't want any heartwood because it's red gum, and red gum, the lateral, the genial movement is so extremely different that it just tears apart. So we couldn't have that heartwood in it at all. So we had to find a tree big enough to pull that piece out. Yeah, so that's not easy. And I'm just about to do a 3-metre woman, high woman, in river red gum. And we've only just found a tree in months. Because they need to be dead for years, and they need to have no rot or anything up through the centre, and river red gum does that all the time. So it becomes a bit of a game.
When you're doing those big pieces, I mean, do you ever sort of sculpt the cheeks together? With a bolt?
I'd probably get going to with this one, but with the fish, all I did was a large Japanese saw and just draw cut, lots of cuts, and then come and clear that space. When we look at your leaf in the next period of time, no, we won't use it. Well, come on. Yeah, use it, chance. You'll fill it to the cabinet with chance. No, I'll show you how you look at two views to bring everything down, and when you do a large piece, that's pretty much what we do with the chainsaw. But with that fish, I was super nervous about that job, so I just used a Japanese hand saw, but a very large version of. I think your ones there would be about a 240, but once you get out past 300mm on the blade, they tend to work for the bigger. So just lots of cuts and then knock it all back out again.
What was the difference with the Gigi that you had to work that with? You can't do it normal.
No, this is Gigi, this is a desert wood, and you probably don't see much of this because it's not many people are used to it, but pass that along. I think this may easily be the hardest wood on the planet, but it hasn't been registered. So Acacia Kambari, if you want to get all Roman on us. By the way, I only learned Roman for Rob. That's it, I know. Before that I was always like, I don't need to know that, I just need to know what the wood runs like. But it kind of makes me sound cool when I can speak English.
So these are hard woods.
This is ridiculously hard. These are desert woods. So your Western Wild, your Nilia, your Gidgee, your yarns, etc. They're all desert acacias. So as you get out towards the desert, you'll hit this game of slow-growing, rock-hard trees that don't necessarily look so pretty. I think they're pretty. They are very smelly if it rains. Like, oh yeah, you can smell them like from a distance. Decay. Unpleasant, but still.
Do you need
So pretty, you can't have everything.
So you need particular tools to work with those, or just very sharp?
Rasp files, no blades. So we'll take the edge off the blade first.
Yeah.
And because I played with a little bit of stone, when I was given it, I looked at it and went, just treat it like stone.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I carved it. Because it's so hard though, you can also take it super fine and you won't be able to break it in your hands if you want to. So it's got amazing density.
It comes out beautiful as well.
It does come up beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey?
Oh, that's my favorite.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. James has a meri, a patu, made of this stuff because it makes an incredibly good one.
It's got the weight of it.
It does. It has
It's
the weight and it holds an edge, doesn't it?
Beautiful as well,
Yeah.
So can I just go back to the Mobius strip ones, like the tall one there. So you would make all of those, whatever scale, always in plasticine first?
No, not always. Not
Okay.
always. No. It's more if I've got there's any curiosity or any unknown that I don't feel quite like I've got it, then I'm going to work like a sculptor, which means marking it.
Right.
And that's where the plasting comes in.
Okay.
Sometimes the feeling is so strong I just go and mark. Yeah, so that's a go and mark.
Yeah.
But I could talk about that one. Should I talk about this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Por favor.
So I don't make anything that doesn't have a story or doesn't have a why. None of what I'm saying now I knew when I started. I think you form a language over time. You go in the direction that resonates best for you. But there is a world full of objects that will say absolutely nothing to you. And if you want to know what I mean, just go find a $2 shop, a treasure hunter, or whatever. So the world is making objects that don't speak to the soul. And this is going to be a slow round the other way. I grew up in a pretty rough background, as a lot of us do, and I was out of home at 14. And then I managed to go back to school because I was raised at half in Australia, in what we call year 11, and my brother up from me suicided. So I've been back at school for about 3 months. And fortunately, by 16, I've been taken in by some beautiful French people. And Monique, who became like my mum, she was so cluey. She could just see that I needed to get through school and I needed stability, and I needed a little bit of self-belief. So I went to a boarding school, boarders only, a football school, which was great because I loved sport. I still use too many sport analogies, I apologise now. And so I got through year 11, 12 at this boarding school. Now fortunately in my holidays, Monique would send me to work on Aboriginal missions out at Walgett, and she would send me to youth camps to work with underprivileged kids, and it was so beneficial because for everything I was experiencing, I saw kids way worse off. So I was getting this different viewpoint. Like she's my superhero. I got into university out of high school, and I would just started. I think I probably again about 3 months in, and my second brother suicided. So I just come out of that cloud. Anyone who's ever experienced it knows way too much of this sort of thing. This will come around. You'll understand in a minute. Knows that you really aren't there. People are telling you stuff, saying helping, etc. But I found that I reckon for about 2 years I wasn't actually present. And I can barely remember anything from that period of time. So my brother Brent suicided, and that kind of threw me again. So I managed to about two more years with university, and at that stage I was broken. I was just dragging myself through it. I was acting. I was in dramatic arts. I was touring. I was playing psychopathic characters. Not healthy if your mind's not working. For some reason I was typecast. And so I just decided to leave it all and grab a backpack and just travel. And so I spent 5 years doing that, and I decided I would not in that 5 years commit to anything other than traveling and not finding myself, but I think just finding some trust in the world. And I did. I found enormous trust, and I took up carving. I'd already been doing it, but never really doing it. So I'd be in remote locations, I'd see a dragonfly, and this was up in the Torres Strait. There was this dragonfly, and I was like, fuck, how magic are you, man? It's like, look at this thing. And I'd come across turtle shell and some dugong rib on a beach and amongst the rocks. And so I made the wings of the dragonfly from turtle shell because it flexes. And I made the body out of dugong because it's the most beautiful ivory, this rib. And I kept doing this, making all these, and I bound it together so it could be worn as a necklace, and I just kept doing that. Wherever I went, I'd make something different. I still do it. I was like, oh, make an axe. Anyway, so it led to having all these things in my backpack, and I was in Kuranda in Queensland, and I walked into a gallery because I had no money. I'd go and work in a cafe, and then the next place I'd end up was because someone told me, oh, you should go check them. And so I ended up with a backpack full of stuff, and I walked into a gallery, and it's like, oh, I don't know if this is any good, but would you give it a shot selling them? And the guy's like, oh yeah, we'll give it a shot for a week. And I came back at the end of that week, and it was tourist seasons, that was usually. And they'd all sold. And I realised that that I had something that I could do while I travelled. And so I had a kit, and that's really where I started. And it wasn't until I settled down a bit and went off to uni to study furniture design that it really became something real. But the reason that I talk about that is because if we look at the why, which is I always get back to why, not how we're doing something. We can all learn how to do something. Why? If you know your why, your work will be strong. I hope anyway. I hope that my work is strong. It feels like it's getting right to me. So having a why for me is everything. And that story, that situation, that setting, the hardest thing that I've ever gone through, of course. But I now look at that as being the biggest gift I was ever given, because it's what stands me in places with other like-minded people. It's what has fed me and my family, in a very basic level, but it has healed me, and it continues to do so. I often joke that I'm in constant therapy. It's like, oh yeah, it's just, I can't make stuff, man. Anyone who makes stuff knows that that's a pretty beautiful place to go, and it's really healthy for you. My wife is a yoga teacher and meditates every day since I've known her, 30 odd years. And I go, I meditate all the time. It's active meditation. And for years she's gone, no, but she's heard this. But she's finally recently just gone, I think you're right. It's like a meditation. I was like, yes. So the reason I sort of go back to that darkness, not to tell a sad story, it's to tell a positive story. but it's also to come to a piece like this. So this at the moment, and over about the last year, has been really sitting in me as an important piece. And it's basically, in Māori we'd call it pata pata. So I'm tūwhare tai, so Lake Taupo area, and English as well, because my name's a pom. And so pata pata, water drop. And for me, the sense of water, this drop from the sky, this beautiful form, this simple, like, you just, water drops are everywhere for me. And now I've given you practically every secret to my design thing, because you'll be able to find a water drop in everything I do. So this water drop, this life that comes down here, but this is flame. And because we know that flame, I used to turn this into a bronze sculpture at 1.5 meters or thereabouts high, and that the channel that you see when you come up close will be inward turned, with water will come out through here, run back in, it will come to the centre, and then it will be pulled out and then pushed back up again. So this is my piece that will go on a bench, so there'll be a big long place you can sit. The sculpture will be here, so you sit beside it, and it's a contemplation place for all those who've lost family, friends, loved ones to suicide. Because I go to every town and I see something that says, you know, a farewell and an acknowledgement of people in war. But I tell you what, mate, people who have suicide, they're in war. And I want us to be able to remember them in the most honourable way and the most respected way. And I think...
Sorry, we're back.
And I don't know, I'll be repeating this with the furniture guys when we work together, but there's two elements I find you can't take away from your work if you want to like really get your work where it needs to go. And one is time. I think an object asks you for time. Like if you want to make it well, it literally requires the time to do it. And we live in a world where we're constantly taking time out of the equation. We're trying to do everything better, faster. But there has to be a part of that equation that falls over. It's just not realistic. And you can see it now in our lives. We're all rushing all the time, and I just need some time off. I just want to take a break, etc., etc. So I think that part of the equation is really, really bung. And so when I'm making, the one thing I don't do is condense or control time. If I'm making that object, if it takes me a week, it takes me a week. If it takes me 3 weeks, it takes me 3 weeks. But what I'm not going to do is desire to get it done. I'm just going to sit with it and get it done in its time. And that doesn't mean I'm slow, because anyone who ever watches me carve knows that I move like lightning. And that's really just practice, because it is practice that builds the knowledge, okay? That's the knowing is through practice. So, and I carve pretty much 5 days a week minimum, usually 6, and then I'll try and do a little bit in the backyard, and my wife will go, "You're not going to be working," and I'll go to my hobby. So I always find a way. Yeah, so time, and the other one is observation, and that's observation actually looking at something for what it's doing. It doesn't just mean how it looks, how does it feel? So when that bird collapses to the ground, how would I feel if I was like that bird? How does that feel? What's that moment? Not how does it look, how does it feel? And all of a sudden that line will sweep up. It's not necessarily accurate to the feathers. That's not accurate. That's the worst bird ever if you want to make a accurate bird, but it's got a sense of what I want it to be. No one's looked at it and gone, "Nice whale." No one thought nice whale?
I thought humpback, yeah. I did. I thought humpback.
Okay. It's actually very close to my whale design, so perhaps. Go back to the water drop, I'll explain later. So, that observation, that actually looking at something and giving again time to observe something and go back and look again and look again and look again, because even how you look at something changes it. So if I go and look at it one day, well, I might be in a great mood. I go there and look at that. Oh, shit. And it could change the entire feeling of how I do it. So, and I try to keep open to all of those things. Is that one observation is never enough. Working from photos is a really good technical thing. I don't do it. I do it. I used to technically draw. I used to be really accurate about my drawing. But what I found is it had no emotional content. It was a clever step. So I'm a great scribbler. Don't ask me to draw, but if you want to scribbler, bro, I'll scribble. And with that in mind, I might call everyone in so you can come right in close. Even the camera person might need to come in close. Because I'm going to just do another drawing, but I might pull out a bit of paper because someone's already scribbled on this bit. And when I'm in my workshop, by the way, this is what happens, is that I draw one over the other. I don't care. So if that bird's there, and I come up with a different idea, I'll do that. And that might actually then go, oh, this isn't an interesting line there. And that one coming through there. Okay, what's that shortening up? Okay, let's drop that line across. Oh, this is not what I was going to demo, but oh, that's interesting. Okay, he's got his eye there. There's... Okay, and my humpback's starting to come out of my drawing. There you go. I thought I'd turn my bird into a humpback since we're in the conversation. But I will just grab a different one. And I love having these blue-red pencils because that's what I do in my workshop as well. Is that I use multicoloured pencils. I build layers upon layers because when you scribble at some point you will then have to translate back to some accuracy.
I bring mine around.
What's that?
My pencil.
Yeah. There's a sharpening thing around the corner, and I got so excited
The
because
sharpening thing.
I hadn't seen one since I was a kid. You remember how excited I was? I was like,
a pencil.
oh my god, I have to scream, fuck yeah, look at this thing! I haven't seen one of these since I was like knee-high to a small grasshopper. I was rather short.
Small grasshopper.
So I was like so excited. And you guys gave me one and I've taken it back and I still haven't set it up because I do something like that. But I'm building a new workshop and it's going to be on the wall in the new workshop. Alright, so I'm just going to use an example of what's here. So these are Netscape. So Netscape are what I call the small giants of carving. They are so bloody tough. Because of the size, any fraction out really, really shows it's out. And so these are excruciatingly difficult. We use boxwood, Japanese boxwood or European boxwood, which is really hard, but it's a fantastic detail holder. When I was a wee little fella, and we left Utaku and moved to Australia, there was this movie, the first movie I saw, and it was this like cool kid that had pet pelicans called Storm Boy. Has anyone read the book or heard of Storm Boy? And so he ends up with this, he has 3 pelicans but 2 are shot and then Mr. Percival survives. Now I was this kid, I was pretty young and I was pretty lost. So I did not want to leave Utaku. I didn't want to leave my whānau. I had just no desire to leave and it really did not work for me going to another country. But when I saw this movie, I went like, oh, I want to have one of them. Because we don't have pelicans in New Zealand. And so I wanted one. And it wasn't 2 years later that I realised that that it wasn't the boy looking after the pelican. The boy's mother had died in the story. And he'd gone to live with an emotionally distant father out in the Coorong, which is an incredibly difficult place to be. It's beautiful, but it's remote. It's emotionally remote. And so it was actually the pelican that was carrying the boy, and that sort of resonated. And I decided I was going to make that no matter what. So I made another little pelican, and the editor of the Woodsmith magazine saw it and was like, oh, this is beautiful, I love this. You know, Jimmy Carter's a really good friend of mine, and he loves Storm Boy. Can I give him this? And I'd have to say, if you want to find a decent American president, maybe it was Jimmy Carter. And so it went to Jimmy Carter.
Oh, wow.
And so as a gift, so that went to Jimmy Carter. And I was at the Woodford Festival at the time, and I said, you know, your magazine should sponsor a small object prize for the national prize. And he said, if you make the Storm Boy piece, I'll sponsor it. And I said, okay. Fucking tall order that is. So I was right, you know, I didn't think anything had come of it, but he sponsored it, and then COVID happened, so I was like, I got off the hook. And then when COVID finished, a couple of years later, I get this phone call from him and goes, you owe Storm Boy. And so I made that, but I didn't just make it. I took a photo from him when I was at school at that age, and that is actually, and I know you might not see the closeness, but if you saw the photo, you go, that's bloody stupid, that is you. That's me at about age 11. riding the Pelican. So I was like, and that also won the prize. But I think it might have won because he wasn't a judge. Actually, had nothing to do with it by that stage. So that's that. Now this one here, do we want to check that just to be on the safe side?
Yeah. Uh-oh, we're camping out here.
We okay? Okay. Yeah, that's right. Roll on the floor, guys. It's buddy style. All right, so this little piece here, I'm just going to tell a story, and I'll draw it in slowly. Just pass that around. It might be just... So, out where we live, one night it started raining. Doesn't sound like much bit of rain, except that where we live is on the edge of the desert. We don't get a lot of rain. It's not like this. And so when the rain was hitting the tin roof, it was such a beautiful sound. It's like, to me, it's still one of the most magic sounds. It just lulls you to the deepest of rests. And so me and my wife, we went off to sleep to this beautiful rain, the kids in bed, etc., etc. And that kept going to about 11 o'clock at night, and it was pelting down. It was louder than this. It got to a deafening thing. At 11 o'clock at night, we're looking at each other going, this is amazing, but gee, that's a lot of rain. And then we repeated that little action about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were like, this just hasn't stopped. And I think the next sort of check-in was when it just stopped at about 7 a.m. So it absolutely pelted down from about 7 that night. So 12 good hours of deafening rain in a place that doesn't get rain. Now where we are, we live in irrigation territory. The nearest creek to our house is 5 kilometres. The nearest river is 45 kilometres to us. And the land is pretty much flat. We're at sea level because we used to be an inland sea out where we are. So we got up and there was water over the lawn, and it was beautiful. It was like about this deep, and it looked like we were in the tropics. But we had little chooks, little silkies, like babies. And so I went up to the chook pen and they were all underwater. And I took their bedraggled little bodies and I took them inside, and I was like, I'm sorry, But I was just, I had one of them in my hand and the others were in a little box, and it was like, what do you do? And I decided to grab the hairdryer. And I was like, because the silk it's so cute. And he sprang back to life. And I did it with all of them. They were all alive. They just needed that little bit of that moment. And so, and they then went on to become the entire family's ancestors of all the chooks that we have these days in the silkies. So they got great fucking papa.
Beautiful, isn't it?
So we did that. We pumped water out from under the house. We dealt with the things that you've got to deal with after an event like that. The kids ran up and down the streets, through puddles and caught the carp that was swimming up and down gutters and brought them home like this and put them back in, etc. So I was pretty mad. And it went away. Then 3 days later, I'm in the nearby town working, and my phone does what our phones are doing right now. It goes, rings, I pick it up, and there's this, and it was residents of Yenda, which is a town of about 1,000 people. Evacuate now. And so I phoned Janine and said, what's happening? She said, the SCS are running all around the place, trying to get everyone out of houses. They reckon there's an inland tsunami coming about 20 kilometres wide. Wow. Because it hadn't just been in our area, this had been over 1,000 odd square kilometres. It was a massive rain event. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Because firstly, flat country. Secondly, it's never happened. There's never been a single flood in the entire history. And I was a bit whatever. So I drove home slowly, we had a cup of tea together, we put stuff up, grabbed an overnight bag, and we went into town. About a day later, and it's been videoed, a cameraman videoed this little trickle coming from the Marul Creek, 5 kilometres away. Little trickle coming down the road, just like that. And that little trickle built up and up and up, and basically went over our town. Our town was underwater for 3 days solid, and the streets under for 5. Wow. And all bar 4 houses, because everything is at the same height. And it really was caused because we had a channel bank from one of the irrigations and the railway line doing that. And it formed a dam, and the whole town just got dammed inside. And once it's a state of emergency, you cannot blow a railway line, you can't do anything like that because it affects everyone else and people get sued. So our town went underwater. And so I decided to write a story to help my kids understand it. And so it goes that one night, I'm going to do some little design tricks here. So we'll do a little bit of yin-yanging. So one night, it starts raining and little girl goes to sleep and it's really heavy rain. It just keeps raining and raining. But she's off in little la-la land. Until she hears this knocking that wakes her. It's like on the window, really loud, and it's loud. And she's one of these little kids that's like so damn curious about everything. So wanting to know everything. So she wakes up and she looks, that's coming from the window, and she gets out and she gets up to the window and she looks, and there's a giant eye looking straight into her, like massive eye. And she's like, she didn't swear because she's a good kid. She's like, oh, gee, I wish I knew a swear word.
Wasn't you?
No, it wasn't me, definitely.
She opens a window and there's a giant fish right outside her window, and she's like, who are you? She's like, oh, I'm just a giant fish. But I've come to rescue you. There's a flood coming and you need to get on my back and you need to leave now. And so in the story, the little girl gets out and she gets onto the back of the fish and the fish takes her away. So let's draw that little girl. Let's give her some... Let's put the eye of the fish looking back at her, caring for her. And let's put her eyes closed in such a manner that she's nothing but settled, happy and safe. We'll get that going. Her arm coming down onto the fish, the hand reaching out, holding on, but nothing too tight. Hair rolls over with the water. The fish's fin reaching out, perhaps even touching her finger, her little finger reaching out. But there's this slight bit of assurance that I'm here, you're okay. And fish have great lips, you've always got to give them good lips. Best lips ever, right? Okay, so we'll give them lips. And therein lies the netscape for that story. Simple as that. Now, if we were talking design, we'd be talking about balance points. And we'd be talking about areas large enough to let detail speak. So it's not just putting stuff there. There's a bit of thought to it. You've got to, when you have detail, have enough space to appreciate the detail. Otherwise, it just becomes detail. And if there's lots of detail without settled design, it's just gibberish. And in Netscape, you can't have gibberish. It's like, this is the big story thing. There's another rule in Netscape. Every line is supposed to introduce the next line as it goes round in a circle. And the more you sort of understand the game of it, the more you sort of get what's going on. Let's give us some hair because we love it.
Amazing.
This hair, the hair on the larger piece, which is there, I'm actually trying to make that look like water. So that's there. But that book I did for my kids. And I got all my illustrating mates to actually make the illustrations for it. And they're all different. And in my favourite one is done by Lawrence Finn. And he got it so wrong the first couple of times. I was like, bloody hell, Lawrence, you're a good artist. Look at this rubbish. I was like, look, pay me. Like, yeah, good mate, you can pay me. But I said, Maurice Sendak, man. Like, the guy wrote Where the Wild Things Are. And straight away, he created the perfect image. It's on my Instagram and in my book as well. So the last page of the book is not in the book. The story's for kids. The last page, the little girl says, but where are you taking me? And the fish says, I'm taking you to your father. And the little girl goes, but my father died years ago. So I wanted to leave this tone in the story that the child doesn't live. And that the story that we make up is the way that we can hold the hard things, that we can digest it. Because where I live after the flood event, you would run into people from the town all the time. And they go, how could this happen? This has never happened before. This is crazy. Like, this should never have happened. Why didn't we know? And where I live, and I work with the Indigenous people a lot where I live, they were forced off that land in the most brutal ways imaginable. I've worked on the documented murders of Aboriginal people in large numbers in the 1800s out there. And perhaps if we hadn't had that happen, we would have known that it can happen out there. Because the length of time those people were on that land compared to the Europeans, all those stories would be there. And when you take people from the land, you take their stories with them.
That's it, man.
And so that was the purpose of the last page. It's not for a children's book, it's for these moments. Because if I have to say why, if I have to go to that place as a maker, then I want to be able to do it strongly. And I know it hurts when we feel those things inside, but we are that. We are living, we don't live lives without these things, and they need to be spoken. And so that's what the little Netscape is actually about. And I might call it, I reckon I've talked for a while now, but I'm happy to just answer questions, talk, play, etc. But I might call it there if that's all right. Yeah. So thanks for giving me your time tonight, guys. Yeah. Cool. Easy peasy. Bloody fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's been my highlight piece, I reckon. It's like, and I've done it in large, because that's why I stuck this here. It was actually a reminder. When I do the large ones, I always do them based on people. And that one was based on a guy that he's so gentle, his manner's great, but he's always puts himself, beneath others, and he's he's a strong servant, So when I'm doing the large quarters out of wood, I always try to actually make them like people, and I just pick the person and then try and make it burn that way. Everything's leading.
Good hands, feet.
I just have one more thing. It's like a black.
Because that's the parkour from up here.
Oh right,
Yeah. That's that actual stone. Remember when I was last here and had all those stones?
Yeah, but they have the event on, didn't they, as well at the museum?
Yeah, they're right. Exactly it. That's the stone. Yeah. All right. I need a lovely assistant. Can someone grab me a pair of scissors? No, it's all right. I know it. I'll be my own.
Right, Stephen will get them.
All right, he slices, he dices, he probably cuts himself with scissors because he only knows how to use chilies. So a Mobius is a one-sided form with only one edge, and it's three-dimensional, so it shouldn't exist. It's a paradox. There are mathematical equations that bring it all together. I know about as much about maths as I do about Roman speak. All right, so if I take this bit of paper and I join that, we have inside and an outside, or one side, two side, and we have one edge and two edge. But if I do a half twist, or 1.5 twists, or 2.5 twists, or 3.5, but the half is essential. So if I go like that, and I join that, I then have a Mobius. Now, that Mobius can be extruded. So I can pull a part of it. It can be a figure eight where we have one hole, and then we join. It can be a loop, etc., etc. But I'm just going to do a bit of joinery work on it. So I'm going to join the loop, and then I'll just. All right. So now, I'll just go back there, half. But if I twist all the way around full, it will not be a Mobius. It's just it's a loop, but it's not a Mobius because it has to be a half twist. I was talking about this yesterday. I might get a couple more if that's all right. Ready to go. I was talking about it yesterday. We use this for drive belts. You put a twist in the drive belt and join it, and it will give you much more life out of your belt because it's running on the edge. So you've doubled the edge that it runs on. So it's actually used in engineering. Thank you, lovely assistant. For my lovely assistant, guys. All right, so now if I draw an X here, marking the spot, no treasure, but we'll follow it. And I follow that around, so let's follow it around. I'll try to stay rough to the center. Follow that around. So I'm on the outside now. But because of that half twist, and I won't be able to draw on the tape necessarily, because of that half twist I go to the inside, still on the inside. Now I come around and it's bringing me back to the outside. I suspect, because I use Google Maps and I know, that I've got back to the X. If I cut that, And I'm going to use some tape, some clear tape, to create a spacer because paper is flexible. My lovely assistant's got me one. Can I have another, please, one lovely assistant? Again for lovely assistant. So if I keep cutting that, I think last time I was here I actually made one. I made the basic and then I did the split overnight so the students could see it. But I've joined that again. Again, it's a spacer. I don't need it there except that I don't want it to unravel. So now I'll cut through that last bit. And that's what it does. So it's not going to fall apart because of that half twist. So you can look at that later. Now when you carve that, you carve the first form I started with, and then I have to find a way to split that all the way around, which is no easy feat because it's constantly twisting, changing thickness, and to go, the thicker the material, the harder it is to keep that accuracy going through. I have worked it out, and I worked it out like this. I put my finger back in behind it, and I drill my finger. Because when you're in space, you know where everything is. So I can touch my ear without looking at it, I can touch my ear without thinking about it, I can touch my finger. I can also drill my finger if I want to target it. So I drill my finger and I hope that I don't drill too hard. Now literally that's how I do it. And you do get your finger a few times, but not too hard. Stay on the slow cycle and you're okay. And then it's all about cleaning it out and getting the form going. So that is your Mobius and that's your Mobius plate.
Wow.
So people do ask me where the join is. It would be way harder to hide a join on that than a little bit of Carver.
Yeah, I was really looking for it, and I was like, blew my mind.
Yeah. So I did that for my son. I showed him how Mobius works, and then I explained that, well, technically you can cut it again and again and again if you want. And he did, I bet you can't make it bad, and that's how that happened. First time, and I did it with Gidgee the first time, but a small one. But the moment he did that, he just knew he had me. He knew I was going to make it. And I've had so many people try to copy that, and you just see these things where it's like, it's like, no, it's bloody hard. So anyway, that's what that is. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Cool. So that's good.